When Belly said,
"Guys, this is Conrad, a friend from home."
It was a stark reminder that Belly has created a life in Paris that Conrad really knows nothing about, and he's kind of the outsider looking in. In the scene when Belly is introducing Conrad to all of her friends when they first arrive at the restaurant for her birthday dinner, there's a lot that's communicated. This really isn't an insignificant or throwaway scene. It might seem less important than some of the other scenes in the episode, but it tells us a lot. When Conrad and Belly are walking into the restaurant, you can already see the difference in Belly's body language towards Conrad from the previous scenes in this episode. She looks more comfortable, a little bit looser, she's standing closer to him, they're laughing. And when you contrast that to the beginning of their day spent together, you do notice a huge difference. She's obviously loosening up and becoming a lot more comfortable with the fact that Conrad is there. Dare I say that when they walk into the restaurant, it almost looks like they're on a date. So as they walk into the restaurant and she starts introducing Conrad to people, it's kind of immediately evident that Conrad is the fish out of water at the moment, and Belly is sort of this social butterfly who is introducing him to all of these people that she knows and all of her friends. And I must admit, when I was watching this, I was wondering how Belly has managed to make so many friends, new friends in Paris in under a year. I can't speak for all of us, but I know that I find it pretty hard to make new friends as an adult. So that's quite impressive on her part. I know that she met Gemma on the first night, and Gemma probably introduced her to the majority of these people. We do know that with her smaller friend group that includes, Celine and Benito and Max. But anyway, it was just a thought that I had. So like I said, Belly is kind of leading Conrad through and introducing him to all of these people. And a key part of what I noticed is that Conrad is fine with this. He's fine to let Belly take the lead. He's kind of happy to follow along behind her. I think this is why their dynamic works so well. We do see a little bit of a role reversal where typically throughout the series, especially when Belly was younger, she's kind of the one following Conrad around like a puppy dog or trying to go where he's going. And you have this little bit of role reversal here, and Conrad is totally fine with it. He's totally fine and happy to slip into the role of letting Belly sort of show him around, introduce him to people, take the lead, invite him into her world. And that's probably why they work really well. He can step in and out of that kind of leading role with ease. So then they kind of get to Belly's core friend group, and she introduces Conrad to the people that she's become the closest with since being in Paris.
Vache. Je t'en rappelle rapidement, hein? C'est qui ce mec, Isabelle? Guys, this is Conrad, a friend from home. Conrad, these are my friends, Gemma and Max.
Dis Conrad. Maxime, il est là. Mais tu sais bien, on comprend. On verra bien. Isabelle, focus sideways, you American sluts.
Les frères aînés.
Et si celui-là est déjà une bombe, je me demande à quoi ressemble l'autre.
Conrad, this is
Céline.
Hi.
Isabelle, closest friend in Paris.
Pardon?
Second only to Gemma.
It's nice to meet you.
So I thought it was really interesting that when Belly introduces Conrad to Gemma, she refers to him as a friend from home. Because we all know at this point that Belly's friend group knows exactly who Conrad is, and while yes, he is technically a friend from home, I don't think that term really fully captures who he is to Belly. I'm sure it's kind of hard for Belly to think of how to describe him while he's standing right there, and her friends know who he is, and they know all of the complicated history that she has with Conrad. And so when Belly introduces Conrad, Gemma and Max give each other this kind of knowing look that says a lot. And I think for me what that tells me is that Conrad has come up several times in conversation, not just on the first night when she met everybody and was telling them about who he is. I think we can glean from the look that they give each other that they have probably discussed Conrad at length, and that Belly has mentioned him several times, and they've probably all dissected everything as good friends do. But more importantly, they kind of embrace Conrad and immediately give him this really warm welcome. I think that says a lot because while we can tell that they have, like I said, discussed Conrad at length, the fact that they give him this warm welcome tells me that Belly hasn't indicated any sort of negative feelings towards him or bitterness over what happened. Nor has she probably ever indicated that she never wants to see him again or anything like that. I don't think they would give him such a warm welcome if she had indicated any of those types of feelings about him. To me in this moment, it was a huge sign that Belly has not written Conrad off over the last year, which we kind of know that anyway. But I think seeing how friends react to him is kind of a big indicator. Like Gemma says, he's here, is that good or bad? And Belly says, we'll see, which means she's open. As I've mentioned several times, I found it a little bit difficult that we lost Belly's internal dialogue. So these are kind of the little clues that I was looking for to get a sense of how Belly feels. Conrad, too, is probably really wondering how Belly feels about him at this point, because while, yes, she started responding to his letters, as we saw, her responses were kind of different in tone from Conrad's. So he's also probably trying to assess how she feels about him, how open she is to the fact that he's here, and what she has told her friends about him. So as I mentioned, the fact that they seem happy to see him and giving him this warm welcome is a good sign. And the way that Celine kind of greets Belly and Conrad, I think says a lot too. I know it's meant to be a little bit humorous, but she's kind of implying that here Belly is with, yet another man. And it's sort of this reminder that Belly is kind of this different, more mature adult self in Paris. The Belly we saw in sort of season 1 and season 2, younger Belly, she didn't have as much experience with dating or men. And now we're seeing this side to Belly where she's a little bit more open and open to new experiences and has more experience. And at this point, when we were watching the episode, obviously we didn't really know for sure if Belly was still with Benito or not. Like I mentioned, figured that she wasn't. For all the little signs kind of pointed to the fact that she didn't go to Mexico with him. But like I said, at this point in the episode, when we watched for the first time, we don't know that. So the way that Celine kind of greets them, again, is sort of implying that Belly has been open to all of these sort of like new experiences. And you know that Conrad kind of is hearing everything she's saying to her. So I imagine all of this is running through his mind too, that this is a totally different version of Belly. But he doesn't seem put off by that, which again, I think is a great thing about Conrad and a good sign that he's not necessarily here to dominate or remind Belly of her old life. He just really wants a glimpse into her new life, and he wants to see if Belly can welcome him into her new life. I know a lot of us were wondering during these scenes if Conrad speaks French and if he can understand what everybody is saying. I have a feeling he speaks enough French to get the idea. He hides it, like he's smirking, but he hides it well. He doesn't want to embarrass Belly. And again, he's just kind of trying to follow her lead, which I really like. So Gemma and Celine kind of playfully fighting over who is Belly's closest friend was interesting to me because I think it's meant to say something. It's kind of meant to tell Conrad that Belly has settled in here very nicely and she has really close friends. As we see later in this episode when Belly and Conrad are walking after their dinner, Conrad tells her that, he thought she might be hiding out. But the scene where Celine and Gemma are talking about who is Belly's closer friend kind of serves as a reminder to Conrad and to us that Belly really has made a life here. She's happy here. She has close personal friendships. And so again, Conrad is kind of soaking all of that in and soaking in this new version of Belly. He can see that she hasn't necessarily just exiled herself to Paris, even if that was initially what she did, and that she actually is really happy here. And again, like I mentioned before, and I'll probably mention several times, it doesn't seem like he wants to step on that or take any of that away. He just kind of wants to witness it. And I loved Conrad's reaction when Celine kind of kisses him on both cheeks and he sort of has this kind of like shocked reaction as though he wasn't expecting that. I think it's supposed to remind us a little bit of like the culture shock and that, like I said, Conrad's a little bit out of his element. He's in this world where Belly just seems so comfortable. She's doing the kisses on the cheek. She's kind of immersed herself in this culture and he is, like I said, the fish out of water. And so we're just reminded of that role reversal once again. So now here we are and Belly introduces Benito to Conrad.
Royal para una reina. Uh-oh. Happy birthday, beautiful.
Thank you. Conrad, this is Benito.
Hey, nice to meet you, man. Nice to meet you too, Conrad. We've heard everything about you. You're like a legend in Paris. Legend, huh?
Pórtate bien.
I'm well behaved. Hey, got your present. Come. I'll be right back. Be careful.
So when Conrad sees Benito greeting Belly, it's obvious that they seem very comfortable and flirty and friendly with one another. Again, like I said, we don't know at this point if they're still together or not, but Conrad has no idea either. And you can kind of see this flash of sadness on his face. He does smile. He's not being openly super envious, but you kind of see like a ton of emotions come across his face when he sees the way that Benito and Belly are interacting. He probably doesn't know what to make of it. He's looking at Belly with this adoration that he typically does look at her with, but also like a little bit of trepidation, a little bit of sadness maybe. And also the realization, like I've said many times, is hitting him that Belly has made a life here. She has this whole new group of people here. She could be in a relationship for all he knows. She wasn't just hiding out. She kind of did move forward. It's just a little bit more Conrad torture, which we've seen so much throughout this season. He blinks a lot, which says so much. I've noticed this is kind of something Conrad does when he is processing or maybe uncomfortable or there's something sort of like a lot of emotions are going through his head. And he can tell that Belly seems happy to see Benito, whatever that means. And when Belly introduces Benito and Conrad is very, cordial and polite. He's not being openly jealous, like I said. He's not being rude or anything. I'm sure he is wondering, is this her boyfriend? And then also simultaneously wondering, would she bring me here if she had a boyfriend? And it's interesting because when Benito says to Conrad, we've heard so much about you, you're a legend, it is laced with a little bit of a sarcastic or negative tone, perhaps an envious tone. He's not being outright mean or rude, but he's also not being super friendly to Conrad. And the fact that he refers to Conrad as a legend reminds us once again that Belly has probably talked about Conrad quite a bit, much more than what we saw just on that first night when she met all of her friends. She's probably bent their ear about Conrad several times throughout the past year. It's safe to say from all of their reactions that Conrad is probably a recurring topic that comes up. And I'm sure Benito doesn't love this. So the way Benito acts towards Conrad and Belly even telling Benito to behave tells us that Benito knows that Belly doesn't necessarily view Conrad as just platonic. And we kind of all know this as readers of the books and the way that everything has unfolded throughout the series so far. But it's just the characters giving us this confirmation. If Belly had ever done or said anything to indicate that she just views Conrad as platonic and she doesn't, fully see him that way anymore, whether she said that directly or indirectly, I don't think Benito would have this kind of tone towards Conrad, and he wouldn't be calling him a legend. So then Benito pulls Belly aside to give her her birthday gift.
Hey, got your present. Come. I'll be right back. Be careful.
So, how was your journey?
Yeah, it was all right. So how you all know Isabel?
She saved.
So while Benito is giving Belly her gift, Belly's friends are kind of chatting with Conrad, being really friendly, and Conrad seems to be handling himself just fine, but it's just constant reminders throughout these introductions that he is for once the odd one out. Even when they ask how they met and Gemma tells him that Belly saved her life and then they went raving, it's such a different Belly than the one that Conrad knows, and we know that's running through his mind. By meeting her friends and getting these introductions, Conrad is getting confirmation that this is a totally different Belly than the one that he grew up with, and he's kind of getting to know this new side of her. It's really important because later in this episode, he does say to Belly that if he met her for the first time tonight, he would fall in love with her. And he is meeting her again for the first time tonight. He's meeting this brand new Belly. Yes, she's not a completely new Belly. You know, she has those parts of her from her younger self inside of her, but she's grown so much in this past year. And he truly is meeting a new Belly tonight. That's why when Belly asked him, like, how would you know? And he's able to say that he would love her is because that's actually what did happen. He came to Paris and he's starting to see this totally different and new side to Belly, and he still loves her. But back to his conversation with Gemma, he can't fully focus on, you know, his chit-chatting with her friends because you can see he's looking out the corner of his eye at what is going on with Belly and Benito and trying to kind of assess what they might be to each other. And I think her friends definitely noticed that because they notice him sort of looking over at Belly and they offer him some wine. And I just really like how kind of friendly and warm and welcoming they were to Conrad and how sensitive they're being to the situation. I know they make a lot of jokes, but I do think they probably seem very aware that Conrad is here to kind of see where Belly stands with him. So now we see Belly reacting to the gift that Benito gives her.
Oh, Benito, it's lovely. Thank you.
Merci, montre, montre, montre.
Oh. Thank you.
So when Belly reacts and says how lovely it is, everybody turns to look. And it's interesting because when everyone asks them to show what the gift is, initially Belly looks a little bit hesitant, but then she kind of leans into it and looks very sort of proud and excited. I can't help but wonder if she knows what she's doing. It's a very intimate gift. It's this photograph that Benito has obviously taken of Belly in some type of intimate situation. And even if she does know what she's doing in terms of piquing Conrad's interest with the gift, I don't blame her at all. If anything, I think it's kind of probably fun for her to sort of tease Conrad a little bit indirectly in this way and make it obvious to him that I wasn't just sitting around waiting for you. So for Conrad, it confirms one thing, and that is that even if Belly and Benito aren't together anymore, it kind of confirms that they have been at some point, which is what he's been wondering. And while everyone is appreciating and complimenting the gift, we sort of again see this flash of all of these emotions across Conrad's face. He looks a little bit sad. He also looks at Belly like he's admiring her. And once again, it's just a reminder to him that Belly hasn't just been, you know, sitting inside her apartment in Paris lamenting everything that happened and, you know, pining after him, even if she still does have feelings for him, which we know that she does. But it's a reminder to him that she kind of really did try to move forward with her life and gain some new experiences. So at the end of the scene, when Belly and Benito hug, Conrad kind of looks down. He looks a little bit sad, a little bit hurt, but he's not being overly obvious about it. Again, it doesn't seem like he's trying to insert himself into Belly's life or force anything or force a decision from her. He's just happy to observe and see where she's at and meet all of her friends and kind of step into her world without interrupting. But I'm sure he still is conflicted in his emotions to see her potentially with somebody else. I think because he had assumed at some point that she was hiding, like he tells us later in the episode, it may not have even occurred to him that she has entered a new relationship or could be dating. And also because she spent the entirety of her earlier life either pining after Conrad or in a relationship with Jeremiah, he hasn't really seen her outside of that sphere. He hasn't really seen her, you know, other than Cam Cameron, which kind of fizzled out pretty quickly. He hasn't really seen her dating or, you know, spending time with anybody outside of himself or Jeremiah in a dating context. And as much as we know Conrad is probably a little bit heartbroken until he learns that Benito and Belly are not together, I kind of think it's for the best because for Conrad, eventually when they do get together, it's a confirmation to him of what Belly said at the end of the episode. You know, we all know that she says, I choose you of my own free will, that she is choosing him. It's not like she just felt like she had these only two options, Jeremiah or Conrad. She did get out there and live a little bit and date a little bit and have some experiences. And even after that, she still chooses Conrad, which is really important. So this was just a small snippet of Belly's birthday scene. I really liked it. Like I said, I think it served a purpose. It might have seemed like, oh, she's just introducing him to everybody. But there were all of these little subtleties in this scene that said a lot. Belly and Conrad have, spent the day together, and Belly has shown him some elements of her life and shared some elements of her life. But now he's actually meeting the people and the relationships in her life. And I think he knows this is the true test of figuring out if Belly is still open to him having a place in her life. So can't wait to continue to dig into the birthday scene because like I said, I absolutely loved it. I think it was arguably one of the best scenes in this episode. But like I said, with Conrad and Belly, every scene in this episode was just absolute perfection.